Hello and welcome to the daily chapter reading of Some of It Was Real by Nan Fisher, a book about journalism. Chapter 10. I don't have much of a plan yet. Right now I just need to get ahead on this guy. He blushed a little when I asked if he was going to share my room. Buried under the surface are manners probably raised by a single mother. And he loves his cat so much that he's in denial about her life expectancy. When I run my hand down his cat's side, I can feel how old age has thinned her fur and the jutting of her fragile ribs. Gently, I tickle beneath Chris's chin and she purrs louder. A lump lodges in my throat. She's holding on for him. When I was a little kid, the idea of loving an old pet was alien. Puppies were everything, wiggly, uncoordinated, the epitome of cute. Then my first dog's face shivered, his back end stiffened, and I loved him so much my heart shattered when we found him dead beneath our porch. For months, the fact that he'd been alone when he died without my arms around him haunted me. Thomas watches waits. I chuckle and say, okay, childhood in a nutshell. My parents own an orchard. It's been in our family for generations. I actually went to the same schools my folks did as kids, got solid A's all the way through, and my teachers liked me. Skipped class a handful of times but never got caught. Spent 4 years on the swim team. I was a diver to avoid the grueling practices. Lazy or smart? I ask with an exaggerated wink. Let your readers decide. During the summers, I climbed trees, rode my bike, had a vegetable garden. I grew green beans, eggplant, zucchini, and tomatoes. Whatever we didn't eat, I helped Mom can for winter. There were lots of chores. No allowance, just the satisfaction of a job well done. Got my first real job at 16. I worked in an ice cream shop. My favorite flavor was mint chocolate chip. Sugar cone, no sprinkles. Fascinating. I shrug. Typical boring childhood in a small town. Casually, Thomas asks, are you still friends with anyone from school? I tug my hair free from a ponytail, take off my blazer, and get comfortable. My t-shirt is pretty tight, but Thomas doesn't look at my breasts. Disciplined or disinterested? Time will tell. Seems like you're the kind of guy who does his homework, I say, so why don't you tell me? Thomas glances at his notes. I got in touch with half of your class of 77 kids. Holly McConnell was the only close friend I could find. 2 guys said they'd casually dated you, nothing more than a few months. You broke it off in both cases. The rest of the people I reached said they didn't really know you. I traced shapes on the plastic table with nails cut short, painted black from my last show. I wasn't popular. Hard to believe. Why? Pretty usually means popular. It's an opening. I ask, would you have dated me in high school? Thomas jots something down in his notebook. You wouldn't have given me a second look. I was a yearbook geek. You don't think I liked smart guys? He looks up from his notes. Only if they could help with your homework. Dead end. Like I told you, I didn't need help getting A's. I consider cutting my losses, but can't help asking, so what else did Holly say? Other than your biological parents' names and how they supposedly died? He's already barked up that tree. Why push the narrative? My guess is that it's a rookie move to affect my balance. Anything else? Holly said that you took off after high school, ghosted her. Thomas says when he's recalibrating. She forgot the part about trying to kiss me every time I slept over. Thomas actually blushes. We did go to senior prom together. I got drunk, finally kissed her back. It was actually nice. She had really full lips. There was some rolling around in bras and undies, but in the end, it wasn't for me. Again, his face reddens. I'm on a roll. 2 can play this game, and I'm better at it. Dropping people seems to be a theme in your life, Thomas notes. Warning bells clang. How so? Danny? For a moment, I forget to breathe. The origin story I tell my audience is about the tarot reading in Haight-Ashbury, my first customer. Bethany and the old guy Arthur is true. But I never mentioned that the tarot reader wasn't a stranger. He was Danny. The train rolls by a field of wheat that sways in the wind. I imagine I'm a single stalk, bending but never breaking. How do you find out about him? Thomas leans in a fraction. The same woman still owns that magic shop in Haight-Ashbury. Gigi remembers you fondly, a true believer. She remembers Danny too. Taking a moment to trace the bumps of Chris's prominent vertebrae, I say, I would hope Gigi remembers me. One day I told her she needed to rush home, that her husband was in danger. She found him on the floor, heart attack, called an ambulance, and he lived. You said he was in danger. He could have been standing on a ladder using a sharp knife or a saw. You didn't say heart attack. I smile, yet still, Gigi is a believer. But also a smart businesswoman. You were young, attractive, and convincing, a good way to drum up business for her shop. I was young and attractive, but at 24 I'm over the hill. Not sure where you learned your interview technique, Thomas, but insulting the subject doesn't win her over. What I did learn of interest from Gigi, Thomas says, ignoring my attempt to both shame him and flirt, was that you began your career with a partner. My stomach drops, but I keep my voice steady. Danny was an acquaintance. Our partnership didn't last long enough to mention. Where'd you find him? I haven't, but I'm still looking. My pulse slows. If you do locate him, please let me know. I'd love to catch up. Thomas nips his lower lip. Huh. Since you never mentioned Danny, I assumed he knows that you're a con artist and has dirt on you. Now I know Thomas bites his lip before he says something mean. You're way off base, but wherever he is, I'm sure Danny's doing fine. He's a survivor. Takes one to know one? Not really. Danny had a rough childhood. Drug-addicted dad, mom took off, lots of shuffling between relatives. I had 2 loving parents, 3 meals a day, birthday parties, Christmas with loads of presents, even Easter egg hunts in the orchard. Couldn't have asked for more, really. So, shall we move on? I'd like to hear how you and Danny met. I shrug good-naturedly. Sure. We met at a youth hostel when I first got to San Francisco, agreed to share a studio apartment near Golden Gate Park. 2 futons, an illegal hot plate, and a rusty mini fridge. Danny didn't mind that it was a dump. He always said every dream had a price. What was his dream? I pretended to think about it. If I remember right, it was to save up money, move to LA, and become an actor. He never graduated high school, worked a bunch of low-paying jobs, so it was slow going. My options weren't much better. As you know, I was a waitress. I can give you the address of the restaurant in case you want to check it out. Maybe my old boss still works there. Vincent. Spoiler alert, he'll tell you I was a crappy server. I once delivered the wrong meals to every customer at a table for 12. In my defense, once the red sauce went on, a lot of dishes looked the same. How do you and Danny start working together? He's a dog with a bone. I consider then decide to go with the truth. One night, Danny came home with a deck of used tarot cards and a battered paperback on how to read them. He thought it'd be a great way for him to make some fast cash. A memory leaps forward, and I'm back in the dingy apartment we once shared. We sit on the cracked concrete floor and spread out ornate black and gold cards. I toss Danny the paperback. Read out a description of each one, and I'll organize the cards. Cheeks red, Danny hands the book back. You read, I'll set them up. Danny? He looks away, says, I can read, I just need a little time to flip the letters. My friend Holly has dyslexia. A teacher in 3rd grade helped her figure it out. There were 40 kids in my 3rd grade class. My teacher just tried to survive. Danny finally meets my gaze. You probably think it's stupid, me wanting to be an actor, but Tom Cruise has the same thing, and it didn't stop him. I hold out the half-empty wine bottle I swiped from the restaurant, and Danny takes a gulp, passes it back. You're better looking than Tom Cruise with loads more charisma. Dimples flashing, Danny says, "You do know I like guys, right?" I give his hand a squeeze, then open the book and start to read. There are 20 cards that represent a big journey on message. Want to just use those? Simplify. I like it. Denny separates the cards while I go through a short explanation of each and their dual meanings. "What's that one mean again?" Denny asks, pointing to the first card, the devil. Without consulting the book, I can tell him upright means attachment or addiction. Reversed, releasing limited beliefs. How do you remember this stuff so easily? I have an eidetic memory. In English, I can recall most everything I read like a photograph in my brain. That's a freaking superpower. He sweeps the cards up and shuffles. My superpower is that I can improvise. He pulls 3 cards, pretends to be deep in thought. "Sylvie, you have an artist's soul, a painter's vision, and a heart of gold. The cards say that you've broken with your country girl roots to follow a different path. As a shitty waitress who gets pathetic tips and has no future, I half joke." Danny suddenly gets serious. "Don't worry, Syl, I've got your back, always. We'll get out of this dump together." "Lost in the past?" Thomas prods. "Danny and I had some good times. He was kind when I desperately needed a friend. I thought you were just acquaintances." I ignore the barb and gently massage Chris's bony hips. Danny practiced tarot for a week, then chose Haight-Ashbury to set up shop. It's a lively part of the city. Singers busking, funky shops that sell everything from weed to trendy clothes, and great restaurants that draw from the more affluent neighborhoods in the city. He convinced Gigi to let him work in front of her store. How? Danny had a contagious grin, and nobody could weave a better story. How'd you get dragged into Danny's scheme? It wasn't some big con, I explain. Danny was just charging for entertainment. And for the record, I never asked to be pulled in. The part of my origin story about being on my way home from waitressing and needing to get off my feet is true. Danny dared me to sit at his table, pretend I was a psychic. Bethany was my first customer. What'd Danny do when Bethany freaked out? Told me that I was a natural. Thomas leans back, crosses his arms, the picture of a judge who has already decided the verdict. So you agreed to work as a psychic? Actually, I didn't think it was a good idea, but Danny persisted. Do you see a bright future waitressing? Let's make some quick money and both go to LA, become actors. The first one to make it helps the other one. Deal? He grabbed my hand, pumped it. Partners, no takebacks. I laughed. What are you for? Okay, it's a deal. Eventually I agreed. I admit to Thomas. What changed your mind? I'd come to San Francisco for a different life, and working as a psychic was different. I traced the jagged scar that runs the length of my left palm. How'd you get that? Thomas asks. Cut myself on some piece of farm equipment when I was little. I look at him from beneath my lashes. There's no big secret here. Danny convinced me to join him. I still took some waitressing shifts, but word of mouth spread fast, and within a month we had a line of customers, mostly from me. Thomas scribbles a few notes. Gigi said that Danny went down to LA with you to meet Lucas Hotter. What happened at that meeting? Danny took the free flight, then decided he wanted to pursue acting instead. End of story. So why'd you lose touch? Thomas presses. I shrug. It was a normal fork in the road. We were kids. Never saw Danny on TV or in a movie, so I guess he got tired of going out on auditions and left the city of dreams. But that's not what happened. There are people in life you wish you could reach back for, like Danny, dragged by the scruff to the present, even if they hate you now, for another chance. Sadly, that's not how it works. And if I had that chance, there's no guarantee that I wouldn't do the same thing. I was a kid who couldn't go home, had no options, and my future was waitressing, garage studio apartments, and never having enough money to make ends meet. Maybe that's why there are no do-overs in life. You can't survive if you have to replay situations, hurt the people you love again and again. The truth is, I screwed Danny over.